Automate and integrate your own solutions using Tanium's API gateway. Whether you're after world domination or a Rube Goldberg contraption, Tanium is the platform for automators and tinkerers. We have some advanced customers that like to build brilliant automation on top of Tanium, and then they come to Converge and show and tell. And I always look forward to watching those customer innovation sessions. And now you can have the same level of access to the Tanium API that we, Tanium, are using and other vendors are using to build their integrations. And we're going to show you how it's done on today's Go-Tanium Tech Talk. Joining me today is Andy Northrop. Andy, introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Andy Northrop. I'm a director of product management here at Tanium. I've been with Tanium for almost 2 years, and I get to work on a lot of our exciting sort of core technologies. So I work on Tanium Data Service, Connect, Reputation, and a lot of other things that we're working on to make Tanium a more efficient and easier tool for internal and external developers. So it's an exciting way to spend my day.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I'm just imagining all of our customers listening to your intro saying that, boy, that would be a fun job to have at Tanium. Well, we're here to talk about the API gateway. Now, my first question to you obviously is, what is it? But also, I know a lot of people, when they hear API, they think of the REST API, like the TAN REST, PowerShell, and Python modules we've got out there. So what is the API gateway, and how is it different from those REST APIs that we've taught at Converge over the last several years?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I get quite frequently when I start talking to customers. The API gateway is a new component that we released to all users this year at Converge, right around Converge. It's a simplified version of the APIs, the REST APIs you've used in the past. We're using a new technology called GraphQL, which we think makes it really simple to use and interact with Tanium from between automated systems. The REST APIs are great. There's lots of power, and for now, they are not going anywhere. But they're also really complicated to use in a lot of cases, and they represent sometimes older versions of our thinking about how to use Tanium. I think I went through with an integration engineer and we counted up 5 different ways to ask a question of the Tanium platform using the REST APIs. One of them will absolutely go wrong for you just about every time you try and use it. 2 of them we recommend, and 3 of them are just in this gray area. And that's a lot of work for folks to understand and get up to speed with when they just want to build an automation quickly. And so that's what we're trying to fix with the API gateway, to give you a new, modern, clean API interface to build automations with and help you avoid a lot of the scaffolding and trying to learn a lot of different API for different modules. So we're really excited about making this easier for customers.
What are some of the other benefits to customers? I know before we hit record, you were telling me about some of the ways that this consolidates, and there's some special access to data that people get with this API as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say like the coolest thing in here is this is the first API that gives you access to Tanium data service data. You could access live question data through the platform with our REST APIs, but there was no access to Tanium data service. So the API gateway lets you get information from all of your endpoints, online and off, really whenever you need it, and at really blazingly fast speeds. Almost all queries to the API gateway are done in millisecond time, which is exactly what you're looking for when you're building, automated system integrations. Like, it's a real pain for a computer to be like, okay, now I've got to wait, maybe a couple of minutes to get data back completely from the platform, and you have to like pull and pull and pull and wait for it. With the API gateway, it's a single call and response, and it's super fast. So that's great. The other thing it does is that internally we've built it so you don't have to think about what module you're getting data from. You just say, hey, I want the computer name, and you don't really have to think about what sensor or what module provided the sensor. You can just say, hey, I want computer name, and it comes back to you really quickly.
That sounds really interesting. I want to double back though when you said it was so fast. So normally in Tanium we ask questions and it takes anywhere from seconds to a minute depending on our environment. So
Mhm.
how are we able to get back these results within milliseconds then?
Yeah, so the if people aren't familiar with the Tanium data service, that's a caching layer that we've had in Tanium for I think just about 2 years now. It ships as part of Interact. It's on by default now, and the Tanium data service allows you to specify fields that you want to keep a recent cache on. So we have questions that are open all the time, so there's always an available answer for it, and we also maintain the most recent piece of information we have, even when an endpoint is offline. Now, because we keep all of that data on the module server, um, we don't have to go out and ask the endpoints every time somebody asks a question. We don't have to go out to the ring. We don't have to go across WAN infrastructure. We can just say, hey, this is the last piece of information I had for this. And for a lot of queries, that's fine. Having data that is maybe 15 minutes old solves most people's problems. That is still way, way faster than a lot of our competitors. But you can also go out and get live data from the platform if you need it. But if you want mostly current, then TDS is great.
Yeah, I tell you, when you get used to working with Tanium data, and it's like a time warp because now we think that 15-minute old data is kind of stale, and that's
Yes.
just so wrong. Everybody else in the industry would love to have 15-minute accurate data, but yeah, that's a huge benefit to customers.
hmm
So
and really, like the jump in, like, not only 15 minutes. So if it's online, it's 15 minutes. But if somebody shuts off their computer and like goes home for the end of the day, we can still find out information about that. You're not no longer dependent and as an administrator on, like, is the computer online right now for me to find out and take action on things.
So, Andy, I'm really interested to see this. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I've heard the buzzword GraphQL thrown around a lot. And unless you're a developer, you may not be familiar with that. So, I'm really curious to see what that is and how that's exposed here in the interface. Can you give us a demo?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So this is what you're seeing on my screen right now is the in-product GraphQL Query Explorer. We put this in the UI because it gives you a really simple place to get started and makes this really discoverable for folks. You'll find it under Administration and API Gateway. It's right here in the menu, so you can click and you can start experimenting with GraphQL queries without having to write any code at all, which is, makes things nice and simple. As you look at this UI, there's three panels that you'll probably use. The first is here on the left, is where you write your query, and I have a couple examples we can walk through. The second is after you run your queries, you get the results back in this right-hand panel. And then you can also pop out the documentation and search for whatever you need. We really liked GraphQL as a technology because it has a very nice mapping between, the query, the way it thinks about queries is terrific for Tanium because we ask questions and we get a set of results back. And that carries through really nicely here. So you'll see this query here on the left. I'm going to say, hey, I want the first 10 endpoints, and I'd like really a laundry list of information back from them. So the name of the computer ID, and the domain name, and really goes on here. And then when I run the query, it pops up. You can see how fast that was. It just executed the query, and it faster you can really think about it. And you get the same information. You can see that this is in the same structure as it is in the query. So you get a very clear mental mapping of what I asked for and what I get back as a result. And that's really handy. Another great thing about this interface is that if I don't know what I'm looking for, I'm not sure how to use something, I can start by typing, and it's going to give me this type ahead support and tell me, hey, this is exactly this computer ID. It's the Tanium client computer ID. It gives you an example of what kind of sensor information you're going to get back and the sensor that it came from. So you can really trace back and map from what you're doing here to what you would normally do in Tanium in the Interact interface. and then understand what you're going to get back as a result, which is
Andy,
terrific.
that is so nice to have that real time feedback in the interface, especially as somebody who's a coder, and
Mhm.
having that stuff popping up is really handy. What if I don't even know what to type to get started there?
Yeah.
How would
So,
I find other things? Yeah.
we've got the third panel of interest is documentation. So I don't know, is there a sensor that you're particularly fond of, something of value? Maybe I just,
Oh, let's take like established connections.
uh, so that one isn't actually in here. Let me
Oh, okay.
back up just.
I bet I can guess that that's probably not in TDS
It
for a
might
good
not be in
reason.
TDS.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we're not harvesting it. So let's, say I want something. I'm trying to figure out domain names. So if I just type in domain name, you'll see that it populates. It runs a search over the documentation. It says, okay, do you want endpoint domain name? That sounds what I want. And now I can click right in. I can say, okay, cool, this is the domain name of the endpoint, and I get examples and the sensor. So it is really nice to be able to start with just like type in what is the thing I'm looking for and find out if it's in the environment. Now, we do have this structured query, or this structured schema that has a lot of the common information. And as we're adding more information into the API gateway, we're trying to make it so you have really a coherent view that makes sense about like how you think about an endpoint, not how you think about like starting from what module is this information coming from, and then trying to glue all those pieces together. We're trying to do that stitching together for you, and really keep it focused on the endpoint and the information you want to get about the endpoint. If it doesn't, if we don't have the information you need, we can come down here and we can use this sensor readings feature to say, I want to get any sensor at all in the platform. And I just want to tell you the name of a sensor that I know is there. And I want you to go run that and execute it. And it can also be with parameters. So for developers, this really gives them the whole gamut of, I can write a custom sensor, I can deploy that sensor to my endpoints, and then I can write custom code to go out and get the results of that sensor. So you can really, sky is the limit for writing content and then accessing it through the API gateway.
So this show is for admins and enthusiasts, and I know we have a lot of people who are really enjoying this right now. So there are some people who are more mature in their development skills. But let's say I'm brand new. I've been tasked with an integration within our in-house business app that needs Tanium
Mm-hmm.
data, and I'm looking at this left pane, thinking, well, that's nice that you've already got that there. Where did you get that?
Yep. We do have, so we've gone out, and if you access our documentation, this is on, our primary doc site. We have examples here that should get you started. So starting with very basic, I want to make sure that I can get the time back and just confirm that I'm talking to the system correctly, to giving you examples on getting data from the endpoints, or even building pretty complicated queries for parameterized sensors and how to perform filtering, and limit down what you're getting data back from.
So the bottom line here is all of us start with copy and paste. That's
Yes.
the best way to go, is find somebody else that's done it.
That's why our code examples start with copy. You can come in here and you can press copy and take it back into the query explorer and say paste, and that's a great place to get started from.
All right, so I'm also watching your query explorer experience there. So you're just pasting these things row after row. Is there a way to execute just a piece of that query window instead of the whole thing?
Yep. So now I have a couple of different, at this point. So once I have multiple queries here, when you press the play button, it'll give me let me select like which query do you have written down here.
Okay.
Now, if you're, this is a great place to start, and I think is a great place to. I usually keep a couple of queries parked in here when I'm doing demos. I think when folks start, sort of advancing what they're doing and trying to get more complicated, I'd really recommend getting a more advanced tool for this, something like Insomnia. It's insomnia.rest. They make a great tool for submitting queries to GraphQL services, and it works really well. It does all the type ahead. It'll go and collect all the documentation and help you do all the type ahead, and also helps you save and test your stuff in a much more robust manner. So I'd really recommend that as you start getting more advanced.
So I've got my next question.
Sure.
So this works really cool in the Tanium console, but I know as soon as I go to implement this in any other language outside the console, I'm probably going to need some kind of metadata, like an API key to authenticate with and all that. So practically speaking, so I've got my query working, I'm getting the results. How do I then port this into my own code and make it go up from there?
Yeah. One of the things I really like about Insomnia is that, you can write a query and then you can actually take that and say, can you show me how to do that in about, I think it's a dozen different languages, maybe more. Anything from give me a curl command to give it to me in Go or Python or shell script. It's really great to be able to just grab that for you on the go. You will need an API key. We talk about how to do that in the examples. I think in our overview section, we have the basic query example. And so this shows you curl and then shows you how to add a session header that includes your token from the API tokens menu to be able to put that together.
All right. And for those who are uninitiated, could you show us in the console where we would go to get that information as well?
Absolutely. So if you go to the administration menu and you come here to API tokens, that's where you can create an API token that can send data off.
So Andy, I noticed that you're doing this in Tanium Cloud. So is there any difference between using this in Tanium Cloud versus on-prem? And is there a specific version of Tanium server or console or interact or any kind of dependencies for this?
This is available for on-prem and cloud customers. So if you're a Tanium cloud customer, it is already installed in your environment. You don't have to do anything. It comes by default for all customers. If you are on-prem Tanium user, you do have to install the gateway, but that's a pretty easy process. It's in your solution manifest. The only gotcha to think about is you'll probably have to install another service that goes along with it. It's called System User Service. And then obviously you'll want to have TDS, which should be in any modern version of Interact. If you don't have TDS, we have some other questions. So in the manifest, very easy to install from the solutions menu. Just make sure you install the System User Service along with it.
Well, on this show, we never use customer names, but can you give us some examples of some kinds of things that customers have wanted to build with this?
Yeah, I would say 3 great examples. First is sort of as a first party. I know we're not a customer, but if you think of the IT Service Center solution that we have as a partnership with Salesforce, that was really the project that prompted the creation of the API gateway. So all of that power, all of that capability that's in the IT Service Center, it's an entire application built on top of the API gateway. Really just an enormous amount of capacity there to bring information about the health of an endpoint directly into a service desk ticket and give context in exactly where you need it. So it's a great example of using this for really targeted enrichment of a workflow process. A second great example is with our partnership with Forescout. So they make a lot of different tools for managing physical networks and the switching and routing networks. They use the API gateway as part of our partnership and integration with them to import information about Tanium into their database. And they use that to make policy decisions on endpoints. So they can say, hey, I have a new endpoint that we're seeing on the network. Let me ask Tanium about it. And then if Tanium doesn't know about it, if we can identify this endpoint as being managed by Tanium, we can move that off into a quarantine network or an isolation network until we get the client on it. And they use that to make a variety of risk decisions throughout their infrastructure. So that's really exciting. We also have one partner who worked with us, or one customer It was a large services company who worked with us during our beta trial, and they actually built an entire application delivery solution on top of the API gateway. So they have, I think they have more internal developers than Tanium has developers, and they're writing new applications all the time. And they wanted to make those easily available to everyone at the company. And so they built an internal app store, and customers or users can just go in and say, hey, I want this application, push a button, and they use Tanium to deploy that down to the endpoint. The other side of that was when they have to do reimages, reimage somebody's laptop, reimage a server, they're able to say, hey, gateway, tell me the list of everything's here. Tell me the software manifest of installed applications so that we can wipe the machine and then we can put those same applications back in place. And that was a major initiative for them with Tanium for the year. So they were really excited to be able to build that with the gateway.
So this is relatively new. So what's on the horizon? We never promised dates, right? But what are you guys thinking about making next here with API gateway capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing that'll be rolling out shortly, we're in testing for some improvements on filtering. Make it easier to expand the number of things you can filter on. That's a pretty straightforward expansion. The next thing, we're going to be adding comply and risk data to the schema so that you can get access to that the really great risk score and risk vector information that's provided by Tanium Risk. We have a lot of partners that are really excited about that from a zero trust perspective, and the ability to say, like, hey, here's an endpoint. What is its risk level? What should I do with it? How can I get a top line view of the risk of that endpoint? Comply will bring along all of the comply vulnerability reporting, endpoint vulnerabilities. Again, that information you can access it with the sensor readings field in the gateway right now, but we're going to bring it into the schema and make it a lot easier. After that, we really we need to make some changes to how we execute actions, and we want to make it really, really simple to perform any action on any endpoint. And we're working hard with the TDS and the platform teams to be able to think about things like, how do we target offline endpoints? How do we target based on information that we just have in TDS? So we're really excited about being able to take our game up a level on targeting, so you can really have that full loop of see data, or get information from Tanium and take action on it, and help people automate their way out of a lot of chore work, and make sure that it just runs quickly, and you can automate and stop doing things by hand.
Well, that is an ambitious slate of improvements. That sounds like a couple levels up, and I really look forward to seeing that happen. And for our folks watching at home, I'm really looking forward to seeing your Converge sessions coming up this next November on what you built using the API gateway. There's always some amazing things there. Well, Andy, we're just about out of time. Anything else you'd like to share with folks before we wrap up?
I think the one thing I didn't touch on is that, we spent a lot of time talking about querying, and we, forgot to mention that you can actually take a lot of actions with the API gateway. So software installation, software removal, there's a lot of great stuff in there, examples in the documentation, but I think querying is really only half the picture right now. So excited to see what people build, and please send us questions. We'd love to hear them, and we'd love to help you on the journey.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Tech Talk today, Andy. And so the call to action, you heard it straight from his mouth, was let us know if you've got questions or concerns, feature requests, things like that. And you can do that by emailing go@tanium.com. We made it as easy as we can. Go@tanium.com. Send us your feedback there to let us know. Also, if you'd like somebody from Andy's team or your account team to get in touch with you, maybe coach you on some of this, they'd be glad to do that. Now, down below in the show notes, we have some takeaways for you, some call to action, right? So you can email us at go@tanium.com, or you know what my favorite websites are at Tanium, right? docs.tanium.com, community.tanium.com, kb.tanium.com. It's been a while since I plugged those, but you go to docs.tanium.com. There's a link below that's got a link directly to the API gateway docs with those example code samples to get you started, like Andy showed just earlier. Also, at community.tanium.com, we have a number of articles. And again, there's a link here in the show notes to take you over there to help you walk through some of those beginner articles as well. Also, there's a link to graphql.org, which will help you if you're new to using GraphQL. That is the place to go to understand that syntax, as well as insomnia.rest, that tool that Andy mentioned that's been very helpful for a lot of people who are using this to develop in their environment. So there you have it, folks. You know what Go-Tanium Tech Talks is all about, is bringing you the innovation of Tanium, stuff that you've asked for. And now just the whole takeaway, I think, today is that, before we had API interface that I know I've used and some of you have used, but now you can get access to that TDS data, which is always on, always there, no matter who's offline. So, because I know I bumped into that when I was using the REST API. I'm like, oh wait, I need this out of TDS and I can't get it. Now you can. So go try your API gateway stuff. Ping us in the community. There's a link in the chat there if you have some questions on API gateway in the forums. We'd love to help you there as well. So thanks for joining us on today's Go-Tanium Tech Talk. And until next time, Go-Tanium. And it doesn't help that I was up till midnight last night. I packed up my astronomy gear and everything. It was in I got about 3 hours last night on California Nebula. First time in about 3.5 months, I got out to do some astronomy photography. And then
pause.
It's great.
Sorry, son tried to come in and help. When do you usually post these?
So this one's going up next week during TKO on Wednesday morning.
Cool. I'll make sure I tell my mom.
Yep. Yeah, you can see me on YouTube, Mom.
I'm on the internet, Mom.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing. Like I said, hopefully this will challenge some folks to bring their science fair project to Converge. Mm-hmm. That'd be great. In November, we get to see what they built. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Have a great day. Get some rest.
Yeah. Thanks, man. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.